Well, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk. I'm your host, Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and I am so excited to be with you again on another Friday afternoon. We have an action packed episode today, and we have a group of exciting guests with some great events that are coming up here in the DMV. So you want to keep tuned in and jot some notes so you'll know what to be expecting over the next month. Our first segment is sponsored by the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. You know, they're hosting the 53rd annual legislative conference next week at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center downtown. We will be talking to CBCF President and CEO Nicole Austin Hillary and giving you some highlights of what to expect at the Congressional Black Caucus. We hope that you will be there and see history happen in person. And now that children are back in school, a big concern is how to keep them healthy. Well, Dr. Maislyn Christie, a specialist in pediatrics, is here to share with us some much needed tips on keeping your children healthy this school year. And finally, well, not finally, it's not finally, but we also have Craig Rice, Greater Washington Vice President of Community Engagement for Ronald McDonald House Charities of Greater Washington, who's back with us to talk about their flagship event, the Red Shoe K 5K, happening on October 6th. And so we want to know more about how Ronald McDonald House is supporting families in the DMV and also how the people in the DMV can support Ronald McDonald House. And I'm also looking forward to our last guest from the Tudor Place. Wow, why did I get brain freeze? You know, sometimes I'm just moving too fast. But we were looking forward to having Rob DeHart, who's a curator of Tudor Place, to be with us to talk about a new program that's taking place there. You know, Washington Informer took a group of readers there this summer for a tour. It's amazing, amazing location right in the District of Columbia in Georgetown. So now that Tudor Place, or actually we're approaching the 200th anniversary of General Lafayette's tour of the United States, Tudor Place is activating an exhibit and program that looks at that, but also the role that Lafayette played in what he saw with regards to slavery in America. So those are some of the things we're going to be talking about this afternoon. So we hope that you'll stay tuned. But most importantly, I hope you picked up a copy of this week's Washington Informer. And I always like to show it to you. We've got some great stories. I think it's really interesting, the story that Sam Collins did on Khalik Barnes, the ward aid advocate who has turned into a state board representative, an elected representative. He is a student member on the board. So you want to look forward to reading that story, and also some of the other stories that have happened in the city that Sam and others our staff has focused on. But most importantly, this week, you'll get a copy of our Congressional Black Caucus. Can I show it here? There it is. Our Congressional Black Caucus Foundation special edition outlining all of the details. You don't know what the caucus does. This is a way to find out. You don't know who the members of the caucus are and how it's grown. You want to pick up this issue. You want to know how the CBC is really battling for Black America. The stories are here. So make sure you pick up a copy of this at newsstands across the city. You know, you can get this online, as Chevy's showing you. You can get the digital editions, and both publications are available at washingtoninformer.com. But you can also pick up the print edition at over 400 newsstands in the Washington metropolitan area. We're at Metros, CVS, Safeway, you name this store, Giant, different places you can pick up copies of the paper. So we hope that you will. This is a keepsake, so want to make sure you get a copy today. And consider becoming a digital subscriber. It's free, and you'll receive news updates in your mailbox. So when you go to our website at washingtoninformer.com, you'll see that little box there that says subscribe today. You click on that and put in your email address, and voila, it's done. And you can see we have several newsletters that you can choose from. So you can pick one of those newsletters, but we really want you to subscribe to Win Daily. And on a national platform, we're part of an organization called Word in Black. So you might want to do that newsletter as well. And of course, we have deals and offers. And soon our newsletter is coming back, Our House DC. So we've got a lot of stuff going on here at The Informer, and we certainly want you to be a part of it, including making sure that you share this broadcast. Take a moment now and click share and share this broadcast. Woo! Slow down, Denise. Share this broadcast with your friends and your colleagues and people that are following you on social media. And you can follow us on social media at Facebook, IG, X, TikTok, Threads, Nextdoor, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And what else is in the, I don't know. There's going to be something new pretty soon, but wherever it is, we're going to be there as well. So we want you to know that you can follow us and be a part of the Washington Informer family, about to become 60 years old. Can you believe it? The Informer turned 60 years old on October 16th. We have plans in the making, so we'll definitely keep you informed of how we plan to celebrate the rest of 2024 and 2025, our 60 years here serving the Washington metropolitan area. Lastly, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel right here at Washington Informer TV. No spaces, just Washington Informer TV, where you will find more of our Let's Talk conversations and other interesting videos that you may be interested in. So before we begin our first segment, let's watch our weekly news broadcast by Curtis Knowles.
This is Win TV News, bringing you the news that matters. DC Attorney General Brian Schwab, Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown, and Everytown Law have announced a lawsuit against 3 federally licensed gun dealers, Engage Armament, United Gun Shop, and Atlantic Guns, Incorporated, accusing them of facilitating illegal straw purchases that have contributed to gun violence in the DC area. The lawsuit alleges that the dealers located in Montgomery County, Maryland, ignored clear warning signs that Demetrius Minor was using illegal straw purchases to acquire firearms, which were then trafficked into the district. According to the lawsuit's allegations, over the course of 7 months, the dealers sold Minor 34 semi-automatic pistols, violating DC and Maryland's federal laws. While Minor was prosecuted on federal charges in December of 2022, the dealers have yet to face accountability for their role in exacerbating gun violence. During renovation work on the Smithsonian Castle, an artifact was uncovered completely by accident. Carly Bond, the Associate Director for Architectural History and Historic Preservation for the Smithsonian Institute, commented saying, quote, "It was a drainage cistern built in 1847 that was used to collect rainwater, which then supplied water to the Smithsonian Castle. The Smithsonian is in the process of taking photos and fully documenting the artifact, but the hole still must be filled because it poses a danger being right alongside Jefferson Drive, which is a busy road between the Washington Monument and the U.S. Capitol building." The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has awarded $31 million in grants to 75 fair housing organizations across the country as part of its fiscal year 2024 budget, providing crucial support to initiatives aimed at eliminating housing discrimination. 2 Washington, D.C.-based organizations, the National Fair Housing Alliance and the Equal Rights Center, are among the recipients, each receiving over $400,000. The grants are part of HUD's Fair Housing Initiative program, with funds being directed to second and third-year multi-year grantees of the Private Enforcement Initiative, as these funds will help enable organizations to continue their enforcement efforts to address housing discrimination worldwide.
Phew, Curtis, take a deep breath. I thought I was talking fast. I hope you all got that. It was some great news in there, but he certainly was getting it out. I'm going to tell him slow down a little bit. We've got a little bit of time because we control this show. So anyway, I am very excited to have our very first and special guest joining us for this segment, sponsored by the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Under the leadership of Nicole Hillary Austin, the dynamic president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, the foundation has championed the advancement of African American communities through strategic policy initiatives and groundbreaking programs. So we are going to delve into the highlights of this year's conference and learn more about the foundation's impactful work from none other than Nicole Austin Hillary. Welcome to Let's Talk, Nicole.
Good afternoon, Denise, and thank you so much for having me on and giving us an opportunity to talk about this year's ALC. And congratulations to you and the Informer on your upcoming anniversary. It is amazing, and I'm just so proud to be a part and have CBCF be a part of that amazing history.
Yeah, if I really think back, Nicole, I mean, I've been getting all these LinkedIn messages, folks congratulating me on my 44 years, and I'm thinking, really?
Where does
But
it
then
go?
I know when I think back, I was here when my dad started it. So
Yes, yes.
and I don't have pieces of the cover of the first Congressional Black Caucus issue that
Oh,
we
wow.
did
Oh, wow.
when there were 13 members.
Oh, I need to see that, Denise. We have to
Yeah,
figure out how I can.
yeah, I don't have the paper itself, but we had a graphic designer who did all of the faces of all the CBCF members. And yeah, I'll take a picture of that and send it to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. That
Yeah,
would be an honor to
yeah.
see that.
And so, I mean, this is when we say 53 years?
53rd.
Yeah, it lets you know how 52 years, how far back we've gone, or how far we've come. And now you're at the helm. And tell us a little bit about the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation and what your role is there.
So the foundation was actually started by those original members, Denise, of the Congressional Black Caucus. And it was founded in 1976. So we are preparing now to celebrate our 50th anniversary in 2026, which is right around the corner. And it was started by those members because they were smart, they were prescient. They said there were two things that were missing at that point. Number one, they realized there was no pipeline to develop Black leadership that existed. We all know that even to this day, that one of the ways that you get into a career in policy and legislation and as an elected official is by having an internship. And they realized that often the people who had access to internships were those who were privileged in terms of finances, privileged in terms of their parents and family access to power. And they said, but that's a problem because for those young people who don't have that same access, they are left out of those opportunities. And how, therefore, can they build their pathways to leadership? And so they said, we need to create a foundation that's going to allow those individuals to be supported and have those opportunities given to them. They secondly realized that we did not at that time have a Black think tank. This was before the creation of the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, which is the nation's premier Black think tank. But we didn't have that then. And so we didn't have a place to go as a Black policy community where we could say, these are the priorities for the Black community. What's the research? What's the data that we need to ensure that our communities have the information they need to make really smart, effective policy decisions for the community? And that was the genesis for the creation of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. Our mission is simply this, Denise. It is to empower the global Black community. And we do that through our Leadership Institute, which now is a huge part of the organization. And we put more Black interns on Capitol Hill than any other organization. We have a tremendous fellowship program for postdoctoral students and professionals, doctors, lawyers. They come and they serve as fellows at the foundation, where they spend half their time on Capitol Hill in a member's office or with a committee, and the other half of their time at the foundation doing critical research around those issues that we know gravely impact our community, such as health disparities, education, infrastructure, transportation. And then we are a public education tool. We make sure that the data that we pull, the research that we do, is something that we take out to the community so that communities have access to information and can be empowered to lead and make decisions for themselves. So we do things such as community conversations where we go to different parts of the country with our CBC members, and we spend a whole day with the grassroots advocates, with the local electeds, with the community leaders, talking and problem solving about the issues that are of great importance to that particular community. So that's who we are and what we do. And I'm so proud to be in this position. I consider it a privilege, Denise. I spent my whole career as a civil and human rights lawyer, and my goal in life from the time I was 13 years old was to use my gifts as a leader to impact for the greater good, the Black community. And my dream was always to be able to lead a Black-centered organization because I love Black folk. I love the Black community. That's what I grew up in. I say that to people unabashedly. It's not that I don't love other people, I do. But I feel that because of who I am, the gifts I've been given in life and the community in which I grew up, that I have an obligation and a duty to do what I can to empower the Black community. And so that's why I'm here. And that's what we do every day, Denise. And the ALC is the pinnacle of that years long work that we do. It is a time for us to come together to problem solve, to talk about the issues that are plaguing our community, and to talk about how we move forward as a community when it comes to policy and legislation.
You know, I'm just like filled with pride, Nicole, because you've touched on so many things that if people are really listening to the pieces of what you've outlined here, you can see you can't feel anything but pride. Number one, when we look at where we are in this presidential election and going back those 50 some years, when we talk about Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, you know, who was the first of
Yes.
Black women to take that. And if people haven't read her book or seen the films about her ascendance and how and what happened, something they need to take a look at. When we look at all of those members of Congress and how they didn't have the opportunity to get the training that you're giving to future leaders, that the CBCF is giving, you know, when you hear what you all are doing, it gives you a sense of security to know that folks are being trained and getting the experience. And, you know, and also the fact that there was one other point I was going to make, and of course I've lost it already. I'm sorry about that. I know. But, you know, it's just all of those things that I think are so critical. Oh, that was it. That you know, a lot of people don't know what legislators are supposed to do.
Yes.
And the whole political education that our community needs, we haven't gotten it yet. And so a lot of people think, you know, when folks get elected to office from the local, state, county, whatever, all the way congressional, that part of their job is giving out turkeys, you know, backpacks, back to school stuff, whatever. But legislation and policy is what we have to be focused on and what impacts our lives.
Exactly.
And that's what, you know, the CBCF is doing. And I'm sure when people, those fellows come to you, you probably have to explain a lot of that to them. Is that the case? Do they also come in kind of trying to understand this is a road that I want to take, but what does it mean?
Well, it's a mix, Denise. So many of them, they remind me of myself, you know, as a younger person who wanted to get into policy. They're people who grew up living and breathing and loving these things. You know, I was one of those weirdos who did Model UN in high school. You know, I did student council. I was the class vice president. So, you know, so many of them were young people in their early years who were engaged around policy and understanding systems of leadership and government. So they come in the door with that. But we also want to make sure that they know exactly how it runs, how Washington runs, how state legislatures run. And we make sure they have professional development. We have something called the Professional Development Series for our interns and fellows, where every week they meet with professionals, whether they be legislators, whether they be policy advocates, consultants, you name it, corporate officials, so that they can understand how the wheels of government and policy formation work. Because we want to make sure when they leave the CBCF doors, they are fully prepared, aware, and informed about how this work is done. You know, I'm always saying, Denise, I wish we had civics back in our educational systems in this country.
Definitely.
That is whenever people talk to me, you know, I spent a lot of my career working on voting rights. And then whenever people talk to me about what's the problem, Nicole, with voting rights, I say to them, the issue is not just around voting rights and suppression. The bigger issue we have is around engagement. And we have to return to civics in schools so that people understand how these systems work, because it's what helps to empower us all.
Well, I mean, you said it. Now we just have to do it. We have to put some action behind that, because I think a lot of folks agree with you that civic education, not only just for Black, but all of America,
all of us,
you know,
exactly.
If we're talking about, you know, democracy, saving democracy, and what have you. But let's talk a little bit about next week, the annual legislative conference. You know, again, I mean, a lot of people know the history of that, but why is this? You know, what's going to happen, and why is this significant, and who should be there?
Yes. And you know, Denise, what we were just talking about is related to this, because the conference is about bringing everyone together from all walks of life to have a frontline access and experience to policy and to policy makers.
Right.
It is, again, we are the largest Black public policy conference focused on these issues in Washington that happens every year. People can come and take advantage of and have access to over 100 policy sessions and brain trusts. And they will run the gamut and they focus on those issues that are legislative priorities for the members of the Congressional Black Caucus. So you're going to see sessions on health disparities, maternal health. You're going to see sessions on artificial intelligence and how that's impacting the Black community, the emergence of artificial intelligence. You're going to see sessions around infrastructure and transportation, around educational equity, around how some of the recent Supreme Court decisions on affirmative action are impacting the Black community, and everything in between. So that's why it's important for people to be in the room. You can't, for this one-stop shop and setting, get all of that under one roof anywhere else. And you're also, in addition to having access to those sessions where we're not just going to lay out the issues, but we're going to talk about problem solving. I tell people all the time, Denise, I don't like conferences where we just get together and we look beautiful, and we do look beautiful because Black folks, we look beautiful when we get together. Everybody better come correct. We're going to look beautiful. But it's not just about that. It's also about, what are you walking away with? What are the takeaways? What can you take back to your own community? Whether you come from Kansas, whether you come from California, Delaware, or right up the street in Maryland or Virginia, what can you take away so that you are being a change maker in your own community? It's also about helping to empower folks so that they understand it's not just about your electeds and what they do. It's about what we as citizens have the opportunity to do in our own communities. So those are the dots that we connect at ALC. And then, of course, Denise says it's also about our culture. Our culture is a huge part of what we do as a people. It undergirds us, it strengthens us, and in fact, it's part of what fuels us so that we can fight those big fights around policy and advocacy that we're called on to fight each and every day. So there will be receptions. There will be, different opportunities to break bread. We have the kickoff to our exhibit hall where you'll be able to meet vendors and other people who are doing things in and around the Black community, Black merchants who are empowering our communities in terms of economics. So
and we will be there as well on Media Row. So folks can come by and check us out.
So this is the place where people need to be, where you can get access to all of that. And it is a registration. You can go to our website, cbcfinc.org, to register. We're in the late registration period, but it's still possible. But you can also register on site. And for those people who cannot afford, or for various reasons, it's a problem for them to pay the registration fee, we have options available because we want to break down all barriers, Denise. We don't want there to be any impediment to any member of the community participating in the annual legislative conference, because it is for everyone and it is about everyone.
The beautiful thing I've seen over the years, Nicole, is some of the schools that have brought, high school students or middle school students to the event. I know it's a pretty much adult only event, but it is an opportunity to where we can grow future policymakers. And so I've seen classrooms of students. Is that available? Are you all doing that again this year?
It is available, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Denise. Our Leadership Institute, which I talked about earlier, which is the part of CBCF that oversees all of our fellowships, internships, scholarship programs, they have their own track. So, when you go to register, you'll see options for the different kinds of sessions. Like if you want to look at health issues, it'll help you to really narrow down your focus. But our Leadership Institute has a track for young people, for young professionals, where they will get to have and get information on career development. We have a session where they will have an opportunity to meet other young professionals who will talk about their own journeys. I'm really happy to call out Kemba Smith, who many of us know about her journey through the criminal justice system, but who came out on top and is doing amazing things right now. Kemba will be one of the young professionals that will be talking to those who sign up for our Leadership Institute track about life's journeys and how you can move forward as a professional and be successful, even when you run into trials and tribulations. So yes, we have that particular segment and those offerings geared towards the young people and young professionals so that they too can access things that are particularly focused on their needs during ALC.
So let's just focus in on some real specifics. This is the caucus kicks off next Wednesday,
Yes.
September the 11th, correct? And
Correct.
what else do folks need to know?
September 11th through the 15th is the annual legislative caucus conference. I'm sorry. And again, each and every day, there will be new and different offerings. When you sign up and you register, there will be a bevy of things that you will have access to as part of your registration. You will have access to the reception for our seat that honors our CBCF chair and our board of directors. You will have access to the exhibit hall. You will have access to opening day and the kickoff and the ribbon cutting and the luncheon that we will have for all of our guests. So there's so much that you will have access to. And then, of course, there are ticketed events that you will be able to see when you look at the schedule. Now, I'm just going to tell everybody, I'm always going to be transparent, Denise, and upfront.
Okay.
Pretty much everything is sold out. We have our day of healing on Saturday morning, and that Saturday, as everyone knows, is really our premier day for some of those cultural events. We start off the day with praise and joy, and it used to be called our prayer breakfast, but is now called Day of Healing. We have that on Saturday morning, and we have our annual Phoenix Awards dinner on Saturday night, where we will give out our annual Phoenix Awards to those members of the community who are breaking barriers and doing some amazing things. Those tickets are pretty much sold out. The Black Party is sold out, but there are some other ticketed events that you will still have access to. Our Sojourner Truth Legacy event, which the Black women of the Congressional Black Caucus, this is their project where they honor and uphold Black women and the achievements of Black women. There are still some opportunities there. So please look. But even if you can't access some of those ticketed events, there is so much that is non-ticketed, that is free, because again, we want to make sure that this is going to be a valuable and enriching experience for everyone.
Well, a selfless pitch. I have to say again, make sure you pick up a copy of the Washington Informer so you can get the special Congressional Black Caucus Foundation LC edition. Most of the agenda items are in here. Of course, not all, but they're all here. And so you can kind of pick and choose and see what you might want to come down to participate in. We want to thank you for also allowing us to do this for the CBCF again this year. So, Nicole, we run out of time. Anything you want to add in closing? Oops.
Yes, I want to let everyone know to please not only go to our website, but there is also, when you go to our website, there is an app you can download. As you just heard Denise say, what's in print there's lots of information there, but things that are ever changing and ever evolving and that are updated, you're going to be able to keep up to date on those by downloading our app. So go to the App Store, put in CBCF ALC, and you'll be able to get that information as well. And again, please join us. Even if you can only join us for a day, for a couple hours, this is an historical moment for our community for so many reasons. For the ways in which we need to come together to support and move our community forward, for the historical opportunities that are available in terms of elected leaders, and also because of the attacks that we're under, where our rights are being questioned. And we as a community need to come together to collectively be empowered and to work to move our country forward, not just for us, but for the entire nation. Because the Black community is the backbone of this nation, and we are part of this democracy. And the promises that were made at the founding of this country are our promises to take and to utilize. And so please come and be a part of this history and be a part of empowering the Black community.
Nicole, Austin, Hillary, thank you so very much for being with us and sharing and providing this invitation as the president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, this invitation to all of us to come there next week. I'll be there. I'm going to be looking folks to drop by the booth and say, Nicole said, come, I'm here. So
wonderful. Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you,
Have
Denise,
a good one.
for having
All righty.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, I mean, it is an event, and this is one of those times when if you have that FOMO, fear of missing out, you should have fear of missing out on this one. This is an historic occasion, not only for Black America but for all of America, and it's really going to be a celebration about where we've come thus far. Speaking of children and young folks, though, I am really thrilled to bring on Dr. Maislyn Christie, because she's going to talk to us about a very important topic, and that is the rise of exposure to illnesses as children head back to school. And I'm going to add to that because we just had a father, Dr. Christie, who said, my daughter who just started school brought home a cold, which now I have. So, parents get impacted as well. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
And as Chief Medical Officer of Amerigroup, I know that you're focused on this as a pediatrician. So tell us, what would be one of the first things that parents need to think about as they head back to school and keeping their children healthy?
So really heading back to school is really a time where children are in crowds. And so for all the friends that they greet and all the teachers that they greet and all the other staff, there's a risk that somebody has something contagious or something that's catching. So potentially that child could catch whatever that adult or other child has. So going back to school is a time of increased illnesses. And we see things like just the common colds, right? So somebody just may have sniffles, it's the runny nose, it's the coughing. And so those are some of the illnesses that kids will bring home. Sometimes there are sore throats or pink eyes that are bacterial infections. So yeah, back to school time is back to more illness exposure. So there are things that we could do as general citizens. So, if you have a cough or you're sneezing, you really should cover your mouth. You should do good hand washing, avoiding putting your hand in your face or picking your noses, which is really a common thing that kids do. So there are little health habits that we all could do. And the lastly is really paying attention to prevention. So one of the great ways to prevent illnesses is good rest, staying active, and good nutrition. So those are like the backbone of just staying healthy and trying to avoid some of the illnesses that we could get.
Dr. Christie, I raised two boys, and things are different now, because a lot of parents are working remotely. They do have that flexibility to do that. There was a time when we didn't. And so if one of our children was ill, we just said, look, you can get through the day. You send them to school anyway, unless the school called and said, look, this child is not really well, then you have to. So as a parent, and that's what we have mostly watching this show, what goes into deciding whether or not to keep a child home if they're showing signs of illness?
Well, one of the big things that we look for is a fever. So if a child has a fever, the recommendation is that the child should be fever-free. So temperature over 100.5 or 101 are just the temperature that we look for. If your child has had a fever, then I think it would be wise to keep your child home for at least 24 hours, after the last fever has occurred. So because your child would need to have fever medicines, which you would want to give on a regular cadence, like every 4 hours or every 6 hours. So if your child has a fever, that would be wise to keep your child home. If your child is not looking well, it's time to keep your child home. If your child probably did not get to drink enough fluid or get any nutrition in, maybe your child should stay home. Those are reasons to keep your kid home and not send them to school, because going to school is an additional stress on the body. So you really want to give your child the opportunity to get well so they could get back in the game.
And on the side of prevention, a lot of us adults, we taking vitamins for this, that, and the other. What about children's vitamins? Are you a proponent of that? And does it really help?
Vitamins for kids who are probably not eating as well as they could. There's some picky eaters among us. So if your child is a picky eater, definitely you could do a vitamin supplement. So big things for common colds supplement would be like a vitamin C, which you could really get from your fruits and vegetables. So if your child is not eating their fruits and vegetables 2 to 5 servings a day, as they should, then a vitamin is appropriate.
I know it's not politically correct for you to really talk about the who's providing the school breakfast, lunch, and after school snacks and all that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of debate out there about whether these foods are really healthy. But what would be your recommendation to parents, who either are preparing their own lunches or for their children, number one, but also if before they start the day, what should they leave with? In essence, I mean, is it cereals? A lot of times we don't want to talk about sugary cereals. What's a good breakfast for a child? And, and lunches as well.
Right. So a good breakfast has some protein, has some carbohydrates. So protein could be, any animal source of protein, or you could have plant-based source of protein like tofu or tempeh. So there are things that you could, eggs in the morning. So that's a good protein source. Yogurt, if your kid doesn't do like animal products, so you could do yogurt. There yogurts that can provide a good source of protein, and you could add something like berries to those. So those are some alternatives to the cereal, right? So it's, you want to do a balance of carbs and protein. And sometimes most of the foods that are provided are kind of heavy carbs. And so it gives the kids that really high sugar rush, and then it's a letdown. So really paying attention to how much protein your kid eats. The suggestion is about 30 grams of protein per meal. So that is just, so parents really, they have to really become students themselves of nutrition. So your primary care provider, your pediatrician, is a source, but also you becoming aware that good nutrition is really at the basis of staying well, or even if you get an illness, to get better quicker. So, yes.
Are there resources that you can point to, probably with Amerigroup, where parents or grandparents can stay informed about the latest health recommendations for their children? We want to stay up to date, and things are happening. And, so what would you recommend?
So you could come to our website, and there's also a nurse advice line that's available. So there are different topics that you could research, and it will just kind of give you a little one paragraph or 2 or 3 sentences that you could understand a little bit better as to on any specific topic. Also, there are public service announcements that are usually in the news. So this time of the year, we're talking about getting your flu shot. We're talking about healthy eating. So there's service announcements. Also, when you take your child to the doctor, sometimes, the doctor doesn't really have something specific to talk to you about, but you could bring some questions around, what is considered good nutrition for my child. So you can become a little bit more engaged, and your provider will provide you with the information that they have. So there are different sources that you could get information. Reading the health section in the newspaper, or just listening to something on the internet. But I would just caution, with the internet, you always have to have a source where you're verifying that information is the cutting edge information that you should be having as a parent or grandparent.
Yeah, it's people. My mother used to say, I wish there was a reference tool that she could have used. So many parents said, raising children,
Right.
Particularly with illnesses. And the other flip side of what I was saying, asking you before about, when to send a child to school, is when to take the child to the doctor. Because sometimes, you keep children at home thinking that you can come up with remedies for what they're feeling. But at what point should you say it's time to go to the doctor?
Well, before you even get to, is it time to go to the doctor? There are lots of
Hmm.
resources that you can have a conversation. You
Okay.
could, there's nurse health advice lines that you could use, your health insurance. We do have one that parents could call in and just get information, or you could call the nurse in the practice that you go to. So those are ways to kind of get information that will, at the beginning of an illness, it's probably good to get some, what to expect, and what could be coming down the pike as the illness either worsens or gets better. So I think just conversations are a good place to start. And I would say after about 3 days of you doing your home remedy, so the expectation is that parents do know you keep some fever reducers at home, getting fluids, how creative ways to get fluids into your kids if they're having, they're vomiting or having loose stools or something like that. So there are things that parents can do to start. And then if your efforts are not yielding, I say 2 to 3 days, then it's time for you to seek an appointment. And just to, a pitch for telehealth, there are lots of simple illnesses that you could do a telehealth with your pediatrician and even your adult physician. That could just get you through actually physically going in, because sometimes there's some barriers to that too.
Yeah, I know. The one thing we hate to see is and we're going to be talking to our next guest about that, when we have a really, really sick child. But
Mhm.
it's good to know kind of what the signs are, what we can do to prevent um, unhealthy situations, and how we can help our children get better. So, Dr. Christie, I want to thank you so very much for being with us. Is there anything I missed that you want to share?
No, thank you for having me. But just, we just encourage parents to stay connected with your medical homes and stay connected with your health insurance plan, and then we'll help you with your health journey. That's our goal.
Wonderful. Nothing like
Yeah,
having a
thank you.
healthy community. And we've got to do some work with that. So thanks a
Yeah.
lot.
All right, thanks for
Hope to see
having
you
me.
again soon. All
All right,
righty.
take care. All right, sure.
You
Bye.
too. Yeah, nothing like having a sick child. And Craig Rice, who's the Vice President of Community Engagement for the Ronald McDonald House Charities, Greater DC, who's joining us now, knows about that. And we're so glad to have you with us and to talk about, once again in this sponsored segment, what Ronald McDonald House is doing to really make sure that those parents who face those health crises with their children, what you all are doing to support them. So welcome back to Let's Talk.
Well, thank you very much, Denise. It's a pleasure. And you've had some really great guests on that are working in the space in which, as you said, we see every single day. We at Ronald McDonald House Charities are focused on making sure that we can ease the burden of families who have sick or critically injured children and are hospitalized at our myriad of hospitals throughout the DMV. And we provide a place for them to stay free of charge while their child is being treated. And we also feed those families. And one of the things that we've seen is that the impacts of the expense of this DMV region and some of the systemic problems that Washington Informer, CBCF, so many others have identified that continue to affect primarily people of color and that are socioeconomically impacted, continue to cause challenges for these families when it comes to caring for their sick children. And so we have our 14th annual Red Shoe 5K that's coming up on October 6th at National Harbor. It is a great opportunity for us to continue to highlight why it is important for us to help support these families. Many of our families will be there. They'll be out there on the course. A lot of the children who are in treatment, whether they're dealing with cancer, whether they're dealing with some of the most rare diseases, whether they're dealing with mental health issues, all of the things that we help support families about, by you participating in this race, by either coming out to run and walk or being a volunteer or sponsoring, helps to support us in our mission that we are really passionate about, which is helping to support and improve the well-being and health of our families and those children that they're helping to support.
Well, I just made me think, if for anybody who's a parent and has watched a healthy child grow into a healthy adult, you have to say that phrase, thanks, to God there, but otherwise there go I know I didn't say it right, but you know what I mean. And so we are blessed, but so many parents are not. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity, not only for them to be able to be close to their children, but as what I think you're communicating is a wonderful way for those in the community to support those parents. And so you mentioned to us before the number of parents who have utilized Ronald McDonald House. And I think there's sort of a waiting list for parents as well. Is that true?
That is true. It's unfortunate that we continue to see that there are so many families who want to stay with us, but unfortunately cannot because we just don't have the rooms. Look, we have 32 rooms at our DC house, 32 family rooms. So that means that at one point in time, we could have as many as 130 to 150 individuals staying with us at our DC house. And our Northern Virginia house that's on Fairfax Inova's campus, we have 24 rooms. So there you're looking at roughly about 100 family members. I can tell you that we have our occupancy numbers that are average now around 85 to 95% at both of our properties. And so that's an average. So there are plenty of nights where I sit next to our family services coordinator's office and I can hear her talking to families and saying, as soon as we get a room, I will let you know. I understand the condition and we are working hard to do whatever we can. I want folks to understand that these are families who, again, are placed between a rock and a hard place. These are families who may live somewhere in the region, but oftentimes far from hospitals, but oftentimes are already housing insecure as it is. And so the house may not actually be amenable to being supportive of having an immunocompromised child. And so by having a sterile environment with air purifiers throughout, having the support of staff, being there is something that matters to so many families, regardless of the distance they live. And then also, folks have to remember that not everybody has their own private transportation. Can you imagine having an immunocompromised child and you have to ride on the metro, you have to ride on the subway, and then on a public bus to be able to go to and from treatments for your child? It's not conducive to their health. It's not conducive to their well-being nor their recovery. And so we represent, again, a place where folks can focus on healing, where they can focus on supporting their child. And so by having this Red Shoe 5K, we're raising awareness around how important it is for us as a community to rally together to help support these families in their greatest time of need.
Craig, is there a goal that you're hoping to raise from this 5K?
There is. We're looking to raise $300,000. We're still short of that goal. So we ask folks who are philanthropic to please do everything they can. Every dollar matters. Please don't think that $5 or $10 won't make a difference. It does, because we provide everything for families. We provide everything from toilet paper to paper towels to wipes to diapers to formula, let alone all of the things that go into providing an apartment, basically, for folks, as well as food. And so from that standpoint, every dollar makes a difference. Every dollar helps. Please come out. You don't have to be a 5K runner. Come out and walk the route.
Thank you for telling me that. Because if I am, I need to start getting ready now.
There you go. No need for that. I will tell you as a personal story, my mother and father, who are in their 80s, are coming out and they'll be walking the route. So again, we have families with sick children who are going to be walking the route and pushing strollers with their children. You'll see them with their Forever Family t-shirts and their RMHC family flags. So you'll know who those families are who we're serving. You get to see them. This really is something where, again, it is about community supporting community.
And tell us the date again.
It's October 6th, Sunday at National Harbor. And make sure registration is redshoe5k.org. You guys already put up the flyer, so thank you very much. But it's also to the left of me as well, or to the right of me, depending on how you're looking at it. But redshoe5k.org, please go on there. Again, donate, participate, support, sponsor, volunteer. We need it all.
Okay. And for businesses, if there are businesses that want to support, is there, if you go to the website, will there be places
Correct.
where
There's
business can
sponsorship
make
opportunities
donations?
that are there.
Okay.
It's still not too late. So any businesses
Okay.
that want to get your name out on the National Harbor Jumbotron, there's still opportunity to do that. So it's great publicity as well as being able to be supportive of a great cause in your community. So it's a win-win all around.
Craig, thank you so very much for being with us again today, for sharing this great information, for inviting us. We've got all these invitations. So, if you can make it to CBC, or even if you can't, you can make it to the 5K.
There you
And
go.
National Harbor is going to be it's a beautiful place to hold the walk. So look forward to seeing folks out there. I'm going to try my best to be out there as well. So, but tell your parents that I might be walking with them. So
that sounds terrific. We can have everybody team up together. So we'll make
exactly.
sure we have you meet. All right.
All right, Craig. Thanks so very much. And we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much, Denise. Appreciate it.
All righty. So our last guest, but not our least or whatever, but a very important guest is Robert DeHart, who is the curator of Tudor Place. I call it a jewel in Georgetown. And as you all know, we had the opportunity to do our annual African American Heritage Tour to Tudor Place. It was an amazing visit. And so I know that the ball keeps rolling or bouncing, because there's more now, a new tour that's there celebrating the 200th anniversary of the United States. So Robert DeHart is here to talk about that and tell us why we need to come and visit. Welcome to Let's Talk, Rob.
Thanks so much. It was so great to have you guys out to visit us too. We really enjoyed it. What's coming up? It's the 200th anniversary of the Marquis de Lafayette's tour of the United States in 1824. Lafayette, he was a French general who was instrumental in getting French support for the American Revolutionary cause. He also commanded when he was leading troops in the American Revolution. So fast forward 40 years later, the country is young. A lot of that revolutionary generation had passed away, were gone. So he came back to the United States to do a tour of the states. And it's hard for us to fathom just how famous he was at that time, because he was a link to that revolutionary generation. The country was very young. So this tour, which lasted over a year, was I can't even think of the type of political figure today that maybe would attract that much attention as he went to these different states. So he did come to DC. He also visited Tudor Place at least twice. So we're commemorating that with a special installation.
Well, I don't know if you can answer this, but what prompted the visit to Tudor Place?
Well, it's because Martha Peter, as a granddaughter of Martha Washington, he had met her when she was a child. He was familiar with all of George Washington's step grandchildren and had met her at Tudor Place. So, I'm sorry, at Mount Vernon. So when he came to DC, he made it his goal to visit all the grandchildren of Martha Washington. In fact, he named his own son George Washington Lafayette. That's how close he was to Washington. So that was the main reason. He was. It was October 12th. In 1824, he was having dinner at the White House with President James Monroe, left the dinner, came to Tudor Place just for a very intimate visit with Martha Peter, and then 2 days later came back for a more formal dinner.
Wow, that's when we think about sitting in traffic in DC on rush hour and think back 200 years ago and how people were getting around and who was traveling the streets of Washington, D.C., all these great names that, we talk about. It's just hard to imagine, what time was like, but we sit in that car. It should give us some time to think about it. He also was very, I think, and I want you to talk a little bit about his, position on the abolition of slavery, because, at the time there were enslaved folks in DC, in Georgetown, maybe even at Tudor Place. I'm not sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So what was his position on that?
It was very interesting. He was an abolitionist, and he had hoped that when America was formed and it talked about freedom to all, that would really mean everybody. Well, that's not what happened. And in fact, he was disappointed that slavery had become even more entrenched in the United States years after the Revolution. By 1824, it was so entrenched that, you know, it would take a civil war to really remove it from the American landscape. So he was disappointed in that, but a lot of his friends were enslavers. So it was his tour is interesting from that point, and that's what we're really focusing on at Tudor Place, because we're inserting Lafayette's visit with the Ancestral Spaces tour that just focuses on the perspectives of enslaved people at Tudor Place, because he could not speak out against slavery while he was here, at least publicly. He did privately with Thomas Jefferson, some of the people he met. But what he did do is through his actions, like he visited a school of free Blacks in New York City. He visited with some Black veterans of the War of 1812 in New Orleans and actually shook their hands. He would talk to enslaved people that he met in public places. So he was doing things that white people typically did not do, especially in the South. So it was his own way, kind of under the radar, to acknowledge these people, acknowledge their humanity. While knowing that politically this was a very hot topic that he couldn't really address straight outright.
Can you go back and remind us again what Ancestral Spaces, that exhibit, is about, and then how you are weaving Lafayette's that exhibit into this, so that people get a sense of, you know, what they would be coming to see, because you're extending an invitation for folks to come there as well. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, with this installation, we totally changed the historic house tour and did it completely from the perspective of people that were enslaved there. We worked with descendants of enslaved people who were enslaved at Tudor Place to develop it. So really what people see is their vision of it. They see pictures of descendants. They see a lot of things that you don't normally see in a historic house. And we talk about the enslavers very little on that tour. We extended it all the way up till Thanksgiving. And so when this Lafayette commemoration came up, we didn't want to take down Ancestral Spaces. So we saw a perfect opportunity to take a few of the rooms and talk about Lafayette's visit, but talk about it again more from the perspective of enslavement and what these people might have thought. We don't know. We don't have any accounts of how he interacted with enslaved people at Tudor Place. But we also want to ask the question, what did they think about this? Because they understood the sham of liberty, of American liberty. And Lafayette was coming here and people were saying, this is our savior of liberty and freedom. And of course, the Black people were saying, well, that did not happen to us. And they know that. And they know there's a fallacy. There's some hypocrisy, in this whole thing that's going on. So we want to highlight that in the installation and talk names of real people that were enslaved, like Will Twine, Anastasia Hepburn, Barbara Cole Williams, who were most likely at Tudor Place during that visit, and what they may have been thinking as they're watching all this fanfare with Lafayette.
This is much better than a PBS special. No offense to PBS, but this is like really walking through history and actually seeing it and experiencing this. So I'm really excited. So when does this begin?
It begins October 15th. We're having an event that's actually being put on by the American Federation of American Friends of Lafayette. It's a big dinner. It's a swanky thing. It's at night. There's music, or in the evening. That's a ticketed thing. But then this installation will be up from October 16th till November 27th. So
Okay.
it's basically the Ancestral Spaces tour, but there are 3 rooms where we talk about Lafayette's visit. We have some artifacts from that visit. We have an engraving that he left. Believe it or not, we have some of George Washington Lafayette's hair. We have hair of about everybody who was in DC. It's a really, in fact, we have a program coming up called Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow. That's in
Oh, I
October.
should have left one of my locks.
Yeah, you should have. You should have. We would have liked that. Yeah, well, we're just focusing on hair art, all these
Hair.
things we have in our
Interesting.
collection. But we also have a set of plates and a chair that were used for one of the dinners. Lafayette ate everywhere around DC. A lot of those houses are gone. That's one reason
Wow.
we're at Tudor Place. But we do have some things from some dinners he was at. So there are some artifacts too from the visit, and also a lot of things, commemorative items that memorialize both the visit and Lafayette in general, just to show what a huge towering figure he was in history at that time.
I think we've neglected to tell people where Tudor Place is. I keep
Oh,
saying, the jewel in Georgetown, but
yeah.
exactly where is Tudor Place?
We're at 31st and Q on what was known as the Heights of Georgetown. So we're way up, quite a ways up from M Street and what people usually think of as Georgetown. When the house was built, it would have had a clear view down to the Potomac, probably been able to see over to where the Capitol and where the federal city was, what they called it at that time. So it was almost like they were trying to replicate Mount Vernon with it being up on a hill and looking down. But now it's more in the city, but we still have 5.5 acres. We're open Tuesday to Sunday. And if you look at our website, you'll see in the calendar all these events I'm talking about, including a lecture we're having on Lafayette's visit on September 17th. That's being done by our executive director, Mark Hudson. So if you really want to take a deep dive into Lafayette, much more than I know, that's a good thing to attend. It can be both in person and virtual, and it's free. So you just have to look at our website.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I just want to say in closing, having been on the tour, that your docents or your tour guides are fantastic. They will answer any questions, give their editorial commentary on things that, like you have done about just anything folks want to know about Tudor Place. I love history, and I love, the opportunity to come there and looking at that. Is that a phone over your head?
Yeah, my dad actually made me talk on this at home. He had a thing for old. Yeah. It was kind of hard to talk to a girlfriend while holding one thing here and him talking to this. It was, and I couldn't even go anywhere. There was no privacy whatsoever.
Oh no.
So,
Okay. All right.
So it actually would
tricks.
work if I had it hooked up, but I don't anymore. I don't have a landline anymore.
All right. I just happened to notice that. But anyway, Rob, thank you so very much for being with us today. I hope folks will come out to the installation to see the beautiful gardens at Tudor Place. It's a really nice place to go and to experience history in person. So thank you so very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Have a good one. So I want to thank everybody. I mean, all of our guests who joined us today. And before I go, I just realized Sherry and I were talking the other day. Speaking of, we've talked about fathers and parents and what have you today. And we want to extend all of the folks who are watching. Sunday is Grandparents' Day. And we really should do a show on grandparents, because so many of them are raising their children's children. And we don't get a chance to celebrate them or celebrate the way in which they still have a lot of value and influence in our families, the love that they share and what they provide. So I want to thank not my grandmother, but my children's grandmother, who happens to be my mother, Vera Abbott. I want to wish her a happy Grandparents' Day. And any grandparent that's watching, happy Grandparents' Day on Sunday, September 8th. Don't forget to give them a call, share a little bit of love. So I want to give a special thanks to our guests, Nicole Austin Hillary, Dr. Maislyn Christie, and Craig Rice, and of course, Rob, who was just with us. DeHart from Tudor House. I want to thank you all so very much for being with us. And Tudor Place. Chevy's corrected me. I don't know why I would always say Tudor House. Tudor Place. So, because it is a house. That's why. And it was a home to a lot of people. But anyway, having said that, I want you all to have a wonderful weekend. Don't forget to come down to see us at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation annual legislative conference this week. We will be there Wednesday through Saturday. And also, don't forget to pick up your copy of the Washington Informer and sign up for your online subscription. With that, I want to say this is Denise Rollard Barnes signing off.